let's kick this off. Tell me about your childhood, man. Where did you grow up? Where were you raised? Where were you born? Tell me all that.
I was born in Wairika, California. It's just short of the Oregon border in Northern California. Raised 6 miles away from there in Montague, California, where they had California's biggest junior rodeo. And I kind of grew up in that sort of thing. Farmland, Mount Shasta out your back window, cattle, horses, dogs, that sort of thing.
Wow, so you talked about the rodeo. Were you involved in that?
Yeah. So I was in, the age group was from 6 to 11, I think it was, and man, it was some crazy stuff. We were riding calves, and I remember winning the little hometown thing, going to Dunsmuir or Etna or something like that. Got to go to like the next bracket. Didn't last long there, but yeah, like a little. I remember walking around as just a little guy, man. As a little guy wearing a cowboy hat bigger than me, and I have the number pinned on the back of my Western shirt and my cowboy boots on, walking around with a snow cone, and just thinking I was like 10 feet tall, man. I'm in the rodeo, and it was so good, man. They had this thing called the calf scramble.
The calf scramble?
The calf scramble. So I think this would be highly illegal nowadays, but this is a while ago. Okay. It was 38 years ago or something like that. And so they had, you would have the kids in there, and each one would have a partner, and between the two of you, one of you would have a rope. So I was always in there with my cousin. He's a year younger, and there's somewhere between 12 and 20 kids in the middle of this arena, and they open up the other end and all these calves run out, and your job is to tackle one of these calves, rope and tackle one of these calves, and get on him and hold him down until the clown comes along and gives you a buckle. And dude, it is chaos, man. Kids are getting run over, they're getting drugged and stepped on and slammed against the fence, and man, one kid gets a hold of one, and then 20 kids jump on top of it. It was just mayhem.
How old?
Between 6 and 11 was the age group. So yeah, kids, little kids.
I could see how that would be illegal.
Yeah. So anyways, I loved growing up like that. It was just, it's still, even though I was only there till I was about 11, it's still seated in my heart. I love that lifestyle, man. I went to Oregon not too long ago with my cousin to help them build their house, and we went to the rodeo, and there's a young kid wrangling the cattle, and man, just watching him ride around brought tears to my eyes. It's just so wholesome and touching to me. I love that.
Brings back a lot of memories of that.
Yeah.
Wow. So you lived there for how long?
Till I was actually in the 5th grade, and then I wasn't doing very well. So when we moved, they moved me back to do the 5th grade over again. So so I was till the 5th grade.
So okay. Yeah. So after the 5th grade, did you move anywhere?
Yeah, so then we went, my family, my grandparents went literally from rags to riches. Like my dad tells the stories about growing up in Watts and wearing hand-me-down shoes from his older sisters with duct tape on them to school. I'm just poor. And then my grandfather invested in some heavy equipment auction company, and it took off, him and a partner, and they went in, and it was a roll of the dice, and it worked out well. So he literally became a millionaire and moved to Huntington Beach, right on the harbor, with a house overlooking the harbor and boat and a yacht, and so anyways, my dad had 2 older sisters, and all 3 relationships were kind of not doing so well. So my grandfather decided to buy a rock crushing quarry and bring his kids there to work it, to kind of pull the family together. And so we moved down to the beautiful Salton Sea.
Salton Sea, huh?
So from this beautiful God's country and mountains and horses and cattle down to the Salton Sea, this just sand and drugs.
I could see that.
I can't tell which was more of.
I could see that, man.
Yeah.
Okay, now that you mentioned the Salton Sea, like I heard it was different back then. For some portion, it was actually the place to go.
Yeah, right. I got there right at the tail end of that. I think I was there for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, where the weekenders were coming down. The people would come down from LA with their buggies and their boats and their dirt bikes, and it was happening for a little while. But that was on the decline for sure. Then the sea got stinkier, and the fish dying out, and the water receding, and so it was.
It's just it just stopped and
Yeah.
it became the Dead Sea.
The Dead Sea. Yeah.
Okay. So before we start diving into that, tell me a little bit of your relationship with your parents and your maybe your siblings, and tell me about that.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody's perception is different, but as far as my perception of it, man, I think I had a perfect upbringing. I had parents that were strict, hardworking, integrity. They have my dad, man, he's so honest and has such integrity. It hurts him sometimes. He doesn't. He just he won't sell something if it has my word on it. I got to make sure that there's nothing wrong with it, even if it costs me more than what I paid for it before I give it to somebody.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So, my mom, hard worker, both of them, disciplinary. Took me to church when I was a kid. Yeah, okay. So I grew up. I know it wasn't perfect, but my perception of it was perfect.
You mentioned church, that they would take you to church.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that. How was that experience?
Okay, so when we were still up north in Northern California, and my grandmother, my grandmother's mother, so my great grandmother, Granny, she was like, and her sister. So my granny and my great aunt and my Aunt Beatty, they were like the pinnacles of Christianity in my family. It's my granny, she was old. I don't remember much about her. It seems like every time I would see her, she was just scooting around, barely getting around. She's pretty old, or she'd be in her bed. But you'd go in her room to visit her, and it's typical grandmother stuff. Doilies everywhere, and always a Bible right there. And we would go in there. She'd always be talking to us about, biblical things, just preaching to us. Ministry.
I think you had mentioned to me that there was a bus that would pick up.
Once
is that in the Salton Sea?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we went down to the Salton Sea, and there was not much church for a while. So that's I'm 11 when we go down there. So by the time I'm 13, 14, there's a little youth bus from another little Baptist church that run around, and it would come from Oasis on into Salton Sea or Desert Shores, and pick up kids that wanted to go to youth night Wednesday night. So I'd get the bus and we'd go down there, and it was neat, man. I liked going to church again. Yeah, I know this isn't what church was about, but I kissed my first girl on the church bus. Just saying.
The Lord seemed like was blessing you.
It was great. I was abundantly blessed. Right? So, but I'm sitting there, and I'm going to youth night, and I remember stopping and thinking that what is this all about? Is this even what I believe? I was kind of raised this way, and then is this what do I really feel? So I decided to take a step back and evaluate that, and I did. I prayed on it and I thought about it, and I'm like, I have a pretty, I don't know, my mind works pretty good, I guess. So I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I believe in God. This is what I believe in. So I decided that I was all in, man, and I went to church and got baptized at 14, and that's immediately backslidden till 40. It's wow. That was my decision to follow the Lord, and everything in between then and 40 when I surrendered was chaos.
And that was just the beginning of something that was coming that was destructive.
Yeah, so everything that we're going to talk about up to that point is just literally like right out of the Bible. Like sin, the wages of sin is death. And everything that I have to say from this point forward is how death seeded itself in and destroyed that, and death seeded itself in and destroyed that, and just every part of my life from 14 to 40 was just death destroying everything that I tried. Yeah.